Hola a todos, buenas noches. Hoy es martes 30 de julio de 2024. Son las 6:30 de la tarde-noche en Colombia. Yo soy Mike y les doy la bienvenida a otra transmisión en vivo de nuestro canal Español con Mike, Spanish with Mike. Hi everybody, good evening. Today is Tuesday, July the 30th. It's 2024. It's 6:30 p.m. in Colombia. And I bid you welcome to yet another live class from our channel Spanish with Mike. First off, I would like to apologize because for the past month and something, I haven't been able to be present. Could I say? It's been I've had some issues that have kept me away from making some new videos, but it doesn't mean that the channel is gone. In fact, this video is entitled "We're Back." Volvimos. We're back. Right now, I have it seems I caught a cold, so I do apologize for my voice. Hopefully, I'm gonna get better soon. But in the meantime, I just wanted to let you know that even though it's been over a month since we had the last class and the last videos, the channel is still on, and the idea is to keep on making videos and bringing you resources for learning Spanish. And tonight we're not gonna have a class, but I would like to talk a little bit about learning a second language, in this case Spanish. English is not, of course, is not my first language. My first language is Spanish, and I learned English, and I'm still learning English. I started learning English by the age of 13. When I was 13 years old, now I'm 54, meaning that I've been 41 years studying and practicing English. Every day I learn things because learning a second language is it's a thing for life, and I've had the opportunity to live in the United States, so that's been my opportunity to be exposed the best way to the language, to the culture, to the language, and that's my little dog Antonia. And also, I made good friends. I have good friends in the United States, English speakers, and my granddaughters they were born in the United States. They speak English, speak a little bit of Spanish. So I have the opportunity to be practicing English a lot. Sometimes my English can be broken. Sometimes my pronunciation perhaps is not the best. In fact, I have a friend whom sometimes he mocks me because of some mistakes that I make. So, but it's in a good way, right? So it doesn't matter. Why? Because I know that I convey my ideas the way I need. So this is something that I want to discuss in this video, and this would be like a video in which we're resuming activities on this channel. Hopefully, I'm gonna be able to keep bringing you resources, useful resources. So I'll explain a little bit about the fact of learning Spanish. Learning Spanish is not impossible, but it's a little bit difficult. And why? Unlike English, in Spanish, we do have different conjugation for the verbs depending on the subject. That's not the case in English. That's one of the reasons why learning Spanish can be difficult. That's one thing, verbs. The other thing is that some things that are pretty much simple in English are quite complicated in Spanish. For instance, when we talk about the verb to be, the verb to be is just one verb. In Spanish, we have two exceptions for the verb to be, ser o estar, and both work differently. That's one thing. The pronunciation is not really an issue. It's not really an issue because the thing you read is the thing you say, unlike English. But that's pretty much that's fairly easy. But the one of the issues comes when we have to let's say talk about things like now I forgot the name. The subjunctive mode. The subjunctive mood. I mean, the subjunctive mood in English is fairly easy, whereas in Spanish it's pretty much complicated. Forms in which we are using additional forms for the structure. Things like se me viene rápido. I'm saying, se me viene rápido. I'm telling my son or my daughter to please come back quickly. And I'm being pretty much like giving an order, right? It's like an imperative mood. I say, se me viene rápido. Those kind of things, the redundancy is abundant in Spanish. So there's a lot of things that can be somehow overwhelming for English speakers when they try or they want to learn Spanish. No, that's not an issue. Hey, oh, Serena's in the house. I love my friend Serena. Serena's in the house. We've been friends for quite long now. I really love her. She lives in the United States. She's learning Spanish. Hopefully, she will be speaking Spanish pretty soon, and looking forward to having here as well. She's got a few channels on YouTube. She's a gamer, and if you want to get to know more about her gaming and her channels, please do it so. Adventures with Red and Friends on YouTube. Also, I forgot the name of the other channel. You have Adventure with Red and Friends, and please, if you want to, please share your links. And if you can, let me know. I can share. So if there's any gamer here watching this video, feel free. She's an awesome person. Journey with Red, and very, very fun. So coming back to the fact of learning Spanish. One of the things that avoid people from learning a language in a good way is perfection. We as human beings sometimes look for perfection. Perfect kills good. When I try to be perfect in something, sometimes I'm missing the opportunity to be exposed or to start working on my basic skills. So don't worry about the main issue when it comes to learning Spanish, which, as I explained before, is conjugation of verbs. In Spanish, let's say in English, I have for the past. I played the guitar. Played. That's the conjugation. That conjugation is the same regardless of the subject. We played the guitar. They play the guitar. My friends play the guitar. It's the same conjugation. It doesn't change. In Spanish, it's not the same. So it's an issue for non-native speakers when it comes to learn, because they need to start learning the different conjugation, and it's even worse if it comes to irregular verbs. But don't worry about that. Don't worry. Why? Because the structure of the sentences is pretty much the same as in English. We have subject, verb, object. That's the structure of our sentences. If I say I play the guitar, subject, verb, object. In Spanish, I say toco la guitarra. It's kind of different because I say toco la guitarra, right? I skipped yo. But it doesn't mean that you have to skip yo. So the same way in which for us Spanish speakers, when we are learning English, we don't have a rhythm for speaking, but we need to learn the rhythm so we can understand what we are listening to. Because if I talk to a native speaker and I'm with my basic skills, I'm going to go like, hey, are you going to go to the party tonight? I might speak like that. But if I were to speak with a rhythm, it's not going to be the same. Are you going to go to the party tonight? Are you going to go to the party tonight? It's different, right? It's not even fast. It's the rhythm. So I need to, me as a Spanish speaker, I need to get used to the rhythm to be able to understand. But I don't necessarily need to speak in that way to be understood. Same thing applies the other way. If you're learning Spanish, you don't need to worry about a lot of things in the beginning in order to sound perfect. Being one of those speed, rhythm, connected speech. You don't have to worry about that. And the best thing you have to do is to start working on the speech based on the structures that we learn. So we know that we have subject, verb, object. And as I explained before, for us it's very easy to skip the subject because the conjugation of the verb tells us who is the subject. So if I say comemos carne, I already know it's nosotros. So I don't have to say nosotros. Unless I want to be redundant or not redundant, emphatic. If I want to make emphasis on that fact, it doesn't matter. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to skip that. If you're trying to use the structure and you're trying to speak and you're used to place the subject there or the pronoun, don't worry about doing that. Even though we don't do that as native speakers, in time and with exposure, you'll get the grasp of that, and then you'll get used to that, and then eventually you can do it. And in the meantime, at the beginning, you don't need to worry about that. So that's one of the things. Subject, verb, object structures. Go ahead and do that. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about using the pronoun when native Spanish speakers don't. Don't worry about that. You will be understood. Secondly, don't worry about the accent. I know people who's got thick accents, but they speak Spanish and they convey their ideas clearly. It's not an issue. Unless it's a very thick accent that sometimes makes difficult for the listener to understand, but that it doesn't happen quite often. And I think in English, for you native speakers, it's kind of the same, I think. I remember when I was in the United States, the hardest accent for me was from Hindi people. It was so hard for me to understand them when they were speaking in English. But for native speakers, regardless if they were from north, middle, west, east, or south, it was fairly understandable. So don't worry about the accent. So we have first, don't worry about following the structure. Don't worry about that. In fact, that helps a lot. When I know that for affirmative sentences, I go, yo necesito comer. I need to eat. I can say necesito comer. Don't worry. You just go with the subject. Don't worry about that. In the beginning, you need to feel comfortable and feel confident and get used to the structure. So don't worry about that. It's not a crime. It's not a bad issue. You will be understood. Don't worry about that. So the beginning, the accent. Don't worry about the accent. And the other thing is the verbs. Kids, if you listen to kids, when they're at the first stages developing their speech, they go tenseless. I had to remember. I was like timeless. No, it's not timeless. It's tenseless. So let's say I'm talking to my daughters, granddaughters. One of them is 4 and the other is 8. Well, 7, 8. And the one that is 4, she's speaking a lot, but she pretty much, when she talks, she speaks tenseless. It's amazing to see how she's developing her speech, but she conveys the idea. When I talk to my wife, she doesn't speak English, but she's being exposed to English because of the granddaughters, and she starts to get things. And I tell my wife, it's amazing to see and to listen to the girls developing their skills, and that's so natural. So same thing applies to you. So yeah, we know that we have a bunch of conjugation for the verbs, but don't worry about going wrong with the conjugations. Don't worry about that. If you're talking to a native speaker, Spanish native speaker, and you say, yo jugar ayer con mi hermano. I understand already that you meant yo jugué ayer con mi hermano. I already understood that. I didn't have an issue understanding that. It might sound kind of weird, but I understand. I know that you're not a native speaker, first. Secondly, you're making a huge effort in speaking Spanish. So way to go. Way to go. And on the third point is that it doesn't matter because I already understood what you meant. I got the message. If we were having a class, I might go and correct and said, hey, you don't say jugar, you say jugué. Okay, all right. Sometimes that can happen, but not in a mean way, right? If we're in a class, that's totally acceptable, and you're looking forward to being corrected, right? Because if you're making mistakes, okay. But in real life, when you go for the exposure to the language, you will make those mistakes. Most likely, you're not gonna get corrected. You're not gonna stand corrected by the other person who's talking to you, being that person a Spanish native speaker. That's not gonna happen because of what I already explained to you. Unless I don't know why I'm saying unless they know that you're making a huge effort in your learning process and they want to help you to correct, but that's gonna happen in a natural way. I'm going to give you the opposite example. When I was talking to my granddaughters, one of them, she used to say, oh yeah, it's more better if we do this and that, and I was like, no baby, it's much better. Say much better, not more better. Oh, okay. A friend of mine who's English native speaker, he's a speech pathologist. I love him very much. He's pretty much like a brother to me. He saw a video in which I was saying that, and he said, "Oh, Mike, don't worry about doing that. Don't be a teacher to them. They are learning in a natural way, and they will learn in a natural way by listening and by being exposed to language." And I was like, "Oh, that's nice. That's interesting." And funny thing, I stopped correcting my granddaughters about that issue, and eventually they started saying much better because they're being exposed to the language, to their language. They're learning their language, and that's something that you need to aim for when you want to learn Spanish. So don't worry about structure, don't worry about accent, and don't worry about tenses. Don't worry about that. Don't give you a hard time trying to. You're going. It's like when you're playing the guitar. I remember the first things that I was taught when I was playing with other guys in a band. I was told that if I shouldn't worry too much about being perfect, and in the case that should I make a mistake, I just kept on playing, and that was it. I'm not going to stop everyone because I did this wrong. No, it's not gonna happen. It's going to break the flow of the conversation. So don't worry about that. And by starting to use and force your brain to use those structures and forms in order to convey your ideas and those things you want to communicate, eventually you're gonna get to the point in which you get a hold on the proper conjugation of the verbs. So you don't need to worry that much about that, because some people, and that happens a lot with Spanish speakers who want to speak English. They want to sound perfect, and that's not gonna happen. If they want to wait until they know that they think that they are going to sound perfect to start speaking the language or being exposed to language, That's not gonna happen, or that's gonna take years, and that's not gonna happen. That's bad. So the exposure. So uh, studying the language is important. Understanding the language is important because you already have an idea, or let's say the software is already there with English, which is your native language. You already know that, but you want to turn that into a different language, right? So you need to understand structures to compare, and have some basis in order to be able to properly convey ideas and make sentences and say things. But don't worry too much about being perfect, especially because, as I explained you before, the basic structure is the same as in English. Subject, verb, object. It's the same. So don't worry about that. And you take your time to study the language, to practice the grammar, to do some exercises of building sentences or whatever. But you need to be exposed to the language, and not only to the listening. The listening process is important, regardless it is the passive or the active listening. Passive listening is when you are doing things and you play music or news or whatever, podcast in Spanish. You don't really pay attention to them. You're allowing your brain to get used to the sounds. That's it. That's passive listening. And active listening is when you stop and you pay attention closely to whatever you're listening to, oh yeah, those words, those forms, those things, as the way the speech is connected, and so and so. So you need the exposure. You need the exposure because that's the way we learn. When we are kids, we learn that way. But we're not kids anymore, and the idea is to combine both the education and the exposure. So I bet you can find a language exchange partner easily. There's a lot of people, Spanish speakers, native Spanish speakers, who want to learn English. So you can create some sort of an exchange with people, sorry, in order to be able to be exposed and practice the language. Sorry. I'm sorry. So, it is important to start working on that, on the exposure to the language, and losing the fear of the embarrassment. Oh, I feel embarrassed because I don't know if I'm saying things correctly. Don't worry. Don't give it too much thought to it. Just let it go and start working on that. Of course, we need to understand some basic grammar. Start slowly working on the conjugation of the verbs and vocabulary. You need vocabulary, and the best way to learn vocabulary is association and repetition. If I repeat and I associate while being exposed to new words, it's easier for me. I remember when I was in the States, a guy told me, "Hey, bring me the rake," and I understood, "Hey, bring me the." But I was, "What's a rake?" I said, "What's a rake?" And he pointed to a rake. I was like, "Oh, that's a rake." In my brain, I can swear there was no translation at all. My brain immediately labeled the concept of the rake with the word rake, and it's so funny because right now, even though when I'm here in my country, whenever I see a rake, I think of rake instead of rastrillo. The word in Spanish is rastrillo, and I think of rake. That was that powerful. The exposure to the concept and the association gave me the ability to connect immediately and that's one of the things that I started to think in English, because eventually you want to think in Spanish, and think in Spanish, you most likely do that right now with little things like hola. You don't have to go like hola is hello, okay, hello. No, you already know that hola is hello. It's there. I'm pretty much is there, right? Buenos dias. ¿Cómo estás? Things like that. But that only happens if there's an association with an experience through repetition. That's what you have to do. So the idea behind this is, in Spanish, learning Spanish is not impossible. It can be challenging. It can be quite stressful sometimes. It can be difficult. It is not impossible. And if you keep in mind these pointers, first, subject, verb, object. Don't worry about dropping the subject. Don't worry about that. You don't have to do that if you don't need to, or if you don't feel comfortable doing that. You don't have to do so. Go always with subject, verb, object. That's the thing. Don't worry about the accent. Don't worry about that, unless you think that you have a really, really thick accent that might make impossible for us to understand, which rarely happens. I can't remember any English native speaker who were trying to speak Spanish and that it made me difficult to understand what they say. Never. So that's another thing. And remember, don't worry about the tenses. Don't worry about the conjugation of the verbs in the beginning. Don't worry about that. If you don't hit the right conjugation, don't worry. As long as you use the right verb, it's gonna be there. And by repetition, by exposure, you're gonna get better. And remember, this is not a race. You don't have to. You don't. Oh, I need to be fluent in 3 months. Man, that's not possible. That's not gonna happen. You can be kind of good with some stuff. You can learn scripts. You can learn some sentences, basic and useful sentences, and try to learn how to interact with them in a matter of a few months. But that's not gonna make you fluent at all. Same thing happens in English. Same thing happens with other languages. What makes you fluent is your ability to be exposed and to practice on a constant basis through time. And this requires, I would say, a minimum of 2 to 3 years on a steady basis. Not 2 to 3 years studying once a week. Not at all. Working every week. So luckily, you will find on this channel enough resources to do so. I do have different, let me see if I can share this to you, with you, I mean. Give me a second. Just a second. This is my channel. Yep, this is my channel. Let me remove me from here. This is my channel. So when you go to my channel, you can go straight to where it says playlists. Playlist. If you go to playlists, I do have a lot of videos in which I explain different stuff. So I have videos in which I explain the imperative mood. I have videos in which I talk about gerunds. I have vocabulary, irregular verbs, conjugation, conjugating verbs, how to conjugate verbs. You see, I have 29 videos there of conjugating videos. I mean verbs. Colombian slang, if you want to speak like a Colombian. More information on how to conjugate regular verbs, you see. Verbs in general, irregular verbs and regular verbs. A lot of bases. I have live classes. I have the sounds of Spanish. And I have 3 seasons of my podcast, Charlas con Mike. The last one in which I go full in Spanish. So there's a lot of stuff right now in which I go and explain bases. And I'm looking forward to keeping on bringing more stuff like this to you at least every week. And I'll try to be here with you Tuesdays around 6:30 p.m. Colombian time, bringing this kind of information to you on live classes. Now, subscribing to the channel is for free. You don't have to pay anything for being a subscriber. You just need to click on subscribe. With that, you're going to be updated with any new videos that I post, and I hope to start working again on a weekly basis to be able at least to bring a one brand new video every week. And I'm going to focus a lot on conjugation of verbs, a lot on that, because that's like the most difficult aspect of Spanish. And whenever I go live, there's a chat in which you can participate, and you can do that if you are a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, you cannot participate. So that's for free. You don't have to pay anything, but that's gonna help you if you want to ask something. If I can give you some ideas or whatever, maybe clarifying some doubts you have. You're in doubt about something or whatever. So that's one of the things. And I would really appreciate if you like this video. Of course, if you really liked it, right? Because that's gonna help the channel to reach more people, the algorithm things and stuff. So hopefully, we're gonna be able to reach a lot of people. I love teaching, although I'm not a certified teacher. I love teaching, and I try to explain things the way I would like things to be explained to me. And when I explain things for you about Spanish, I always go in English, because I need and want you to fully understand the idea behind everything. Whenever you want to practice your exposure, we can go full in Spanish. Don't worry about that. And if you want to listen to these kind of concepts in Spanish, visit my other channel, Inglés Fácil con Mike, Easy English with Mike, Inglés Fácil con Mike, in which I explain. I have more than 800 videos, I think I have, in which I go fully explaining everything in Spanish. It's good. Plus, I do have the podcast video, so there's a lot of resources. And once again, we are back, and I hope to be able to keep on bringing stuff to you on a weekly basis. So that was what I wanted to tell you tonight. Thanks to all of the people who have been with us here tonight. Thanks a lot, my dear and beloved friend, Serena, Adventures with Random Friends. Remember, don't lose that. If you're still here, thank you very much for being here with us tonight. Thank you for all of the people who are here during this live class. Well, not class, but broadcasting tonight. And also thank you to all of the people who is watching us later, because this video is gonna be there. You can watch this video later and whatever. And also thanks to all of the subscribers of the channel. Thanks to all of the people who like this video, and thanks also to the members of this channel. There's a membership program in which you can support the channel. We really appreciate that. And that was pretty much it. So looking forward to keeping on bringing useful resources to you. See you on Tuesday. Have a good night. Gracias por estar aquí. Nos vemos el martes. Sigan estudiando, sigan aprendiendo, y nos vemos. Cuídense. Bye bye. Chao. Chao, chao, chao.